Welcome to Lat B, the only podcast that comes with a free Bandits bonus.
Express delivery included.
Lat B, where MMA and UFC get silly. This is the Lat B podcast.
Welcome back. Episode 214. We had a weekend off of UFC, but if you keep your ear to the ground, the Twitterverse alive, you would have been fulfilled with combat sports because we did have a bit of Bellator. We had some boxing going on. It was a little bit light as far as UFC is concerned, but hey, distance makes the heart grow fonder. So again, UFC coming around the corner, looking already at all sorts of fun lines coming up for that. But we should break down everything that ended up going on over the historic weekend because there was all sorts of history being broken throughout the combative sports Twitterverse, as they say. How have you been though, real quick? Cheney, how'd your week go?
I missed UFC more than I thought, even with such a big Bellator card. And I know there was one championships and there was boxing. I still missed UFC more than I thought. Like, I talked a big game, like I wouldn't mind, or I needed a break. Is it still, like, this Bellator card was like a UFC fight night? Or you think bigger than that? Was it a pay-per-view still?
What are they now on ESPN? They're ESPN, they're not fight nights, because that was Fox fight night, right?
Sometimes they're ESPN Plus or ESPN Fight Night, or I have no idea what they're called. But then they also have the ESPN pay-per-view model, which is its own thing.
Exactly. So we need to coin these ESPN cards now, but essentially the fight night, yeah, I do think it's one of those free on Big Fox or Big ESPN.
What did you have going on? Anything fun?
A lot of certifications,
fights.
a lot of certifications for all the other stuff. But as far as the fights, I've kind of found out that MMA has really spoiled a lot of other combative sports for me. I watch amateur wrestling or collegiate wrestling. Jordan Burroughs, again, clinching another world title 9 times in a row now. But boxing and these other sports, I watch them at a periphery. When it's not UFC, when I'm not knee deep in fight footage, I'm falling on these, and they're also in my Twitterverse and stuff. But it's just, I'm like, throw a kick, elbow him in the head. Like, God, why are you giving that up? Oh, there's a rule set. This is a completely different sport. But it's fun to see the profession and the specific training of one type of
if you don't have to fear something,
a leg kick or a takedown.
Yeah.
How boxing at its elitist levels, when it's not a finish, we had a couple decisions I ended up catching on ESPN Plus. Ooh, they hurt. Ooh, they were dirty. Light heavyweight was 175 pounds.
I was noticing some of the weight classes too, and it was hard for me to.
I was like,
those guys seem small. Oh, it's different. Oh yeah.
It's unbelievable. Yeah, it did. But that UFC took their model off of a lot of boxing, so it's interesting. It seems really weird when I get mixed up with all the names.
So you didn't do anything besides fight stuff too? It was a normal fight weekend in a way?
I didn't sit at my television like I would for a UFC where I'm like, nope, sorry, I'm watching fights. Where it was Bellator, where I was doing stuff and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this fight's on again? Or this, oh, okay. But it's, again, the level is so low. The people they were hyping up, there was underdogs that if I had enough time to study Bellator, that's where you get your money. There's so many underdogs that come through, but there's so many intangibles. These are guys that are coming off of their amateur scene debuting, and some of them come from good camps and not, but man, we saw some unbelievable finishes throughout the weekend. Should we get into the Twitterverse stuff? Heavy duty. We had the Twitterverse blow up with Aaron Pico being finished again inside the octagon, or what do they call it? The cage. They're not allowed to call it the octagon because UFC has.
Do they ever slip up? I don't watch it enough.
No, I feel like it's told. It's in there. They are not allowed to say it. They get in the briefings beforehand.
Before we jump all the way into the card.
Please.
Yeah, even though that is big. That is big. But it's let's talk about all the gossip before we break down that card. Because
Definitely.
if we break down the card, we have to talk about like probably the biggest news in UFC. And I think we should save it for the end.
I like that.
So didn't happen to catch it. So I hope you did. Did you hear TJ talk to Chael anywhere? I know you listened to the Bad Guys podcast.
I haven't for a little while.
I was hoping. It just seemed so
juicy
juicy listening to him try to make excuses for himself. I was hoping you could tell me some good stuff that he dropped in that. And I'm sure some of our fans did. And they were probably like, F that guy or whatever. But I did find a quote, and I was so into doing something that has never been done before. Not the 2 champs. Obviously, I wanted that more than anything. I wanted to prove I'm the best in the world, but it was also to drop that weight class. I decided to take something I wasn't allowed to take. And yeah, that's deep, but it's also like, well, I'm glad you came to the conclusion that everybody else did, like literally the day you got busted on the drugs. I'm glad you came to this conclusion. Do you think he's redeemable? Or do you think he's booed as the snake forever? Or do you think people will be excited when he comes back?
I think he's going to have his own loyal fans like most fighters do, that no matter what they do, they can't go wrong. But I do think winning gets you back in the good graces. Look at anybody who's been controversial. If you just keep winning, John Jones, Conor McGregor, you're absolutely fine. So anybody's redeemable, and I feel like the only avenues I'm seeing in the UFC that aren't as redeemable is spousal abuse. Other than Hardy, he's the only one that has officially gotten through. They've had a lot of other fighters that they've cut as soon as they even hear a mention of domestic abuse going on in the home.
But then Tony, like his wife adjusted it really quick when that was even sketch or BJ Penn.
But she clarified it. Like she openly.
Yeah, but even BJ Penn's ex-wife, who she tried to, or soon to be ex-wife, they're going through a divorce. So that was clarified and people were like, oh, okay. Like people let it go. BJ Penn fought after that. So I do think it's I will say the UFC fans, unlike any other, maybe really stick with the courts. Like they side with the courts on that. They're like, they sat and waited. Okay, everything looked like it settled with BJ Penn. He didn't look like he beat his wife. They're going through child custody. Or Tony Ferguson, his wife settled it. Oh, okay. No one yelled that out at the last fight. No one was like booing Tony Ferguson.
Not at all.
So, I don't know.
Interesting.
So steroids, people don't care. And
it's been proven.
A good
Pico
example of that, we'll prove it again. We'll talk about it later tonight. Or later today.
John Pico Graham Jones. Just saying.
So this was another one of the things that you actually were telling me about is that Pettis versus Masvidal in the Supreme Patty contest.
Correct. We had a little graphic as well. This is the Supreme One himself on the graphic here. He's, I guess, Florida. He's Florida for life, so we got to rep him somewhat. He's just like,
I feel like, I know, it's like my cousin.
That's what I was about to say. He's your Florida cousin where you're like, yeah, Patty? Yeah, he's doing good.
Cousin Supreme Patty.
Yeah, he's doing good. He's doing good. Good for him. Good for him. Don't film me.
He got that Lou eye patch, so...
Yeah. Is he filming? Don't film me. Like, stay over there. Stay over there. Go do your things over there.
And apparently he lost his first one, you were saying. Or did you say that?
No, I did not.
He lost his first fight. And then Pettis versus Masvidal was a draw.
Interesting.
I didn't watch it. I was hoping you watched that and you could tell me if it was a draw or not.
I watched highlights of it and it was a draw only because... they don't necessarily score takedowns, advances, or anything. It's like submission only. So it was submission or nothing. So hence it's a draw because no one got the submission. But both guys...
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was... I don't think it was... There wasn't even points scored at all whatsoever. Pettis just looked tiny in there to me, honestly. To me, the bigger... benefit of the entire grappling match was like, wow, Pettis can hold his own against 170-pounders, even big 70-pounders, because I feel like Masvidal is in that range. But you really saw them outsized, and because there wasn't points, if there was points involved as far as takedowns without strikes and stuff, Jorge Masvidal did rip. Would have won that via points, but there wasn't. So I think there was a lot of guard pulling and then just giving up submission by Pettis. And again, it's not MMA. It's not UFC. I can enjoy it to an extent, and then I'm like, all right, man, just elbow Masvidal. All right, man.
It's like watching, like, if you were a football fan and they would have those, like, Battle of the Network stars or something, and you're like, okay, I can enjoy it.
Exactly.
I can enjoy you running through an obstacle course, but
right.
it's not...
It's Randy Moss with Adam Sandler as a quarterback.
Yeah. yeah, celebrity golf.
Exactly. Something like that. So...
And they used to have, like, celebrity circus shows. Do you remember those when we were kids?
Yeah, to an extent.
And, like, C-list celebrities from TV shows would be, like, on the trapeze.
Yeah, I was about to say on the track. It was a family versus family, and they worked on it. I totally remember that. Aging ourselves, that ain't no Supreme Patty shit, but eventually, I bet you that kid's going to get up on some sort of trapeze work just because he's going to run.
It's fun, though, and I guess Yoel Romero fought, too.
He did. He, was it a submission? It was a submission
he won by submission.
It was, I ended up watching it. Who did he ended up wrestling in that? Either way, it was a fun one. As soon as he submitted him, was it in an arm triangle? No. Kimura. Got him in a Kimura. Justin Willis? Big ticket?
Oh.
That's who it was?
Of course.
Yep, I think so.
Be a ticket.
I could be wrong,
Big
but
titty
I feel like...
ticket? Big titty ticket? I think that's what it was.
I think that's what people have been trying to name him out there for a little while. But
who was calling him that?
Was it Curtis Blades?
I think you're right.
And also potentially Rampage Jackson? No, I could be wrong on that. He called somebody else Big Titty.
Okay, here's another one. First, John, a fan tweeted out, I would love to see Chris Weidman versus John Jones. That would be great. Make it happen at UFC 239, at UFC 240. John Jones retweeted that and put, Chris knows where I'll be waiting. Then Chris Weidman retweeted it and put, on my way. Interesting in that? Interested at all?
Only because Santos is right around the corner. I hope not. And I feel like John Jones is, as much as anybody's taken a bite out of somebody else's playbook, John Jones is starting to realize the promotional aspect of setting up fights later on. So this is just one that when they pull this exact graphic here from Latby and they show, look at the timestamp, this has been brewing for 8 months, they'll be able to put it on there. But this is just promotional talk. I mean, they're not going to meet each other in an alley. They both stand to lose too much money to do that.
Do you think he's calling them, like, because he talked shit to Luke Rockhold, now he's talking to Weidman. Sure. Do you think he's really just calling bigger names up to his division because there's kind of no one left to fight?
I think he's just solidifying those fights for later on. Again, it's all promotion.
Like pulling more, because he's kind of cleared out the division again almost, and there's Johnny Walker, but it's like sets up for him to have 3 years left of fights. He can put up another few big names.
Yeah, and say, I already told you guys I'm fighting him next. See, look at the tweet.
And beating Luke Rockhold and Chris Weidman for legacy isn't a snuff. You know, those are definitely good fights.
This is definitely a tactical play as far as the long run. John Jones is smart as anybody. He's looking out for Santos, and that's not somebody you can look over. That's a guy who will definitely take your head off, and John Jones knows that. Did you see any training footage of Jones lately? There was some gifs going around. A lot of elbows, a lot of that Yair Donald Cerrone's back elbow. He was throwing a lot of those in his pads with whoever the dad was down the street who came in and was pushing the bag against him. It was really interesting in his garage there.
Whoever the dad from down the street.
It definitely was not his dad. I guarantee you that. But he had like a white goatee and a freaking Dale Earnhardt cap on with a trucker shirt on. So it was a dad.
I didn't watch any of it. I didn't see any of it.
But other fun stuff.
I want to get turned on by John Jones, like excited for him, and I know he's a GOAT, and I almost just buy the fact that, oh, he's so much better than everybody else, and I just move on mentally. Mm-hmm. Like, meh, everything's going to be boring. He's going to be everyone. It's John Jones. It's almost like he's in a place where it's too dangerous to think that in UFC.
He's going to beat Chris Weidman easily. He's going to beat Luke Rockhold easily at this point in time in their careers. We got Rakic. We got Walker. Dominic Reyes is also quietly in there. These guys have all specifically said, I watched John Jones when I was 10 years old and knew I wanted to be a fighter. So it's now that level, I feel like, with John Jones. They're the new breed.
Anthony Smith again. I think he's going to have to fight Anthony Smith again. I think he can work his way back up.
Definitely.
In fact, John Jones is so smart. If he's intimidated or thinks somebody's fight style is off of any of those people you just mentioned, he'll have that fight set up with Anthony Smith first.
Right.
He'll like watch that fight and play it off. He's a smart fighter.
One of the smartest.
This is what I would just want to say to fans, because I am so late. The thing that's going to happen with John Jones, the second I'm on the train that I'm like all aboard, love John Jones, he is going to lose.
Is it the Drake curse? The Cheney curse?
Yeah.
The Cheney curse?
So
the final bandwagoner.
If I'm ever the last on the train. If I'm the first on the train, I have good luck with it. I loved Usman from and I always love to hate them at first. It's a weird thing. I actually hated
love-hate
him
relationship.
at first when he was on the Tough House, and then I loved him. Shevchenko, I was like, no, I liked her first fight with Amanda Nunes. Anyways, so another thing, speaking of Usman, do you care at all about the steam that Usman and Colby are creating?
I just want to see the fight. It doesn't matter what other shit they talk. I feel like it's been said enough. Let's fight. Let's fight, boys. Let's get it going.
I guess Colby tweeted out, nobody likes you, fake newsman. You either drop that fake bell off at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue or get dropped at the Garden. The choice is yours. Kamaru Usman, laughing my ass off. I do have to give you props. No one in the UFC history is hated more than your corny ass. Even the women want to fuck you up. Like I said, keep begging and maybe I'll give you a whooping your father failed to do. Clown emoji. He didn't write clown emoji. He actually put a clown emoji. So what do you think?
I fucking love fake newsmen. It's so good. It's so good.
It's clever a little bit.
It is. But it's like, you throw enough darts at a board, eventually you're going to hit on a couple, and Colby tries a lot. So it's not everything he says is fucking hot fire.
Everything can't stick.
Everything. But this one, that's fucking
fake
good TV.
Newsman,
That's good TV right there. And I love Usman.
I like how
he's our
he's
number
sticking
one
with
chip.
his character, because how many people do you think hated Colby too, but they like Donald Trump, so now they like Colby?
He's got his own following, and he will be able to have his own podcast and tour Middle America for the rest of his years. This shtick, if not going to the WWE as that red-blooded American, votes red, is a Reaganite and all that.
When I first thing with Colby Covington, the reason I didn't like him is because he got his eyebrows waxed too far apart. I feel like he might have adjusted that because he looks a little more handsome these days than he did back then. So,
interesting.
More handsome. He's not my type at all.
Chaos isn't your... I really feel like that sex appeal just does it to the ladies. I feel like, from what I've heard...
American Steel and sex appeal?
It melts the panties off, so I've heard.
In his...
So, who wins the battle here? As far as Kamaru Usman? Who wins the battle as far as on the Twitterverse right now? Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington.
Colby's made us laugh harder. We didn't talk about Usman's once.
Agreed. And it's just time to get that fight on.
We love Usman. Everybody knows it. But he is cornier than, in a weird way, cornier than Colby.
Right, because Colby, you can see, if you're smart enough to see it, it's fucking hilarious.
Like, exactly. He's being a character, whereas it's like weird when you see people fighting with him, because it's like it's almost like Andy Kaufman shit.
Yes, exactly. It is very Kaufman-esque.
It's like they're not getting the joke or something. Like, right. Let him be. He's like wrestling or something, like WWE shit. I don't know. It's funny. It's funny. So Usman, and who do you have in that fight?
I want to say Usman, but it's closer than people think. If that ends up being minus 200 for Usman, people are stupid, and you gotta come in on principle on Colby there.
I'm gonna tell you, I feel like it could go 400 for Usman.
But that's too much. I'm telling you, 200's too much. Minus 200. That's got to be like a minus 150, if not.
You think the grind of Colby's underrated?
I think that both of their grinds is underrated, but I actually think Colby's striking is more underrated than Usman's. And that's where I'm like...
Usman got that sloppy.
His hands break a lot and these are his own words. There's a lot of these fights where all of a sudden he's like, I broke my hand in the first round and that's why I wasn't throwing, and he's done that multiple times. And I fucking love Usman. You guys know, trust us. You gotta trust Usman. We've been on that bandwagon for too long, but once he's a champ, you gotta start breaking down how to beat the champ. And there's people in the division that do give him trouble right now, so it's a fun time to be alive.
Who's at that champ camp right now? You know who's friends with guys like Masvidal, Smart Game Plans, American Top Team.
100%.
It's like all the dominoes are in a row. That's going to be a grind. I agree with you. I think that should be a closer grind. We're going to say it first because I do think it, and I think it's going to go to the decision.
Yes, I agree. It's
5 rounds. I think it's going to be a nasty good. If this isn't a respected wrestling fight that people are like, that was so exciting.
But
the
this is that's
were
the
exciting.
MMA.
I think it might get respect for. I think it's going to be an exciting fight.
Fuck. I really think I stumbled into the striking of Colby when I'm just like, oh shit. Colby has I feel like a better advantage on that.
Yours is striking, mine's the cardio. I think they're not going to be on their feet as much from each other. I think it's going to be a bunch of grinding reversals. And I think just the cardio of Colby and being somebody who's smart enough in his wrestling to be able to use what Usman usually is super dominant in to just wear him out. Because if he's going in with all this pressure and keeps trying for that takedown and doesn't land it like he usually does, because Colby's got that good wrestling too. So Agreed. I think once he wears him out, I think Colby, maybe 1, 2, I think it's that same Khabib, Tony, or Diamond, where it's just like the latter the rounds go, the more Colby takes over. And then what you're saying, already a little bit better striking, but starts to pick him apart.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. And then Usman is, every fight he's been in.
Gives up.
I broke my hand. No, he always stops throwing his hands and just goes right to the wrestling. So then it's like, Colby will be able to hopefully defend at that point in time. And then striking, Usman's not going to be throwing his hands. He'll be throwing desperation elbows like he has before. And Colby's going to be like, no, dude, my hands are good. I can keep doing this. So, interesting
That's a fun fight.
Interesting fight.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. Is there even speculation on the date for that thing yet?
I don't know. I'm sure it's out there.
I don't think so.
I am sure. No?
No?
It's not on
I don't think
it's not
on
an undercard on something. It's got to be.
That's a main event. That's champ. That's interim belt versus real champ.
Unless it's like an undercard on this. These are out of order.
It's all good. But, I don't think it's official. I feel like it's still up in the air, and that's why they're still calling each other out on Twitter. Just like, all right, come on, let's go. Yeah, blah, blah, blah.
Some other stuff on, John Jones, blah, blah, blah. Oh, it would be like the Henry Cejudo. I wanted
Underdog?
to talk about.
Just heard it.
Let's see what'll come up now. Oh, look it. It's running through everything.
Ooh.
Get over yourselves. Okay.
Here at Labby, bringing the best quality we can.
I know. Our audio
it's all good.
Are like, we hate the new. We don't want to go through
graphics and stuff. It's the evolution of the game again. If we're dancing and we're learning those Tony Ferguson footworks, right now when we're half crossing our feet to do that spinning elbow, right now we're getting off balance. Eventually it'll all line up and that elbow's going to be coming.
Yeah, you got to do it 1,000 times. Or 10,000 times.
Exactly. So it's all getting better as it goes. Underdog always trying to get in on the hot topic. I know Henry Cejudo was back in there. He was hanging out with the specific ladies. I don't know much about them. Please fill me in.
Either. The Bella twins, apparently they're a big deal in wrestling.
Okay.
And they tweeted out like cringe is the new cool. Or Instagrammed out with the caption cringe is the new cool, with him with these 2 girls and with his 2 belts and his gold medal. And then he put who's laughing now.
So the interesting thing is that Henry Cejudo asked Nikki Bella on a date the first time he won the belt against Demetrius. Ariel Helwani tried to facilitate all of this via the Helwani hour there. And she respectfully turned him down on Twitterverse, not even quietly in the DMs, she let everybody know she ain't interested in that big old Mexican head of his, and ended up now hanging out with him now that he's got multiple belts and stuff. So it's really interesting how he's kind of telling her who's laughing now and then taking a picture with her.
I know.
Like, you don't take a picture with them, you go, who's laughing now, and you point a picture of, like,
a whole different girl.
Yeah, exactly. Like
who's
a hottie.
laughing now?
Becky Lynch.
Still has you.
Exactly.
Like...
it doesn't make sense to me, so the cringiness... Who's laughing
now? She's still there.
Yep.
You waited for her, and you were the one with the belt. Okay, whatever.
So you have... Yeah, exactly. So I feel like it was a big swing and a miss as far as this whole tweet I saw going around. But definitely underdog seems to be getting the last laugh.
I know, it's fine. Everything's fine. The sound effects are a little out of control. We're working on the sound effects still. So hold on. We're not going to go into that yet. And I think that will be all of the Twitterverse right now. So then we can talk about what you got into earlier. Or, yeah, we can go back to what you got into earlier.
Please. Bellator card?
No, before. One more before.
We had Tyson Fury knocking out his opponent. I couldn't tell you his name if you paid me.
Me either.
Round 2, TKO, 2 minutes. 54 seconds. I mean, it was a supreme showcase. The little bit you did get to watch on there on ESPN was, a showcase of the best boxer at the heavyweight division right now compared to somebody that's not at his level. What can really take away from this fight for Tyson Fury? Yeah, he's better than this guy. Okay.
I almost felt like I was watching remember, you know how Floyd Mayweather of recent went over to
Japan and fought the 21-year-old. Yes.
I just felt like it was a fake fight or
Nasukawa.
something. It didn't even feel real. Even he came out in his red, white, and blue trunks and
Apollo Creed, Welcome to America.
James Brown, Living in America or something. I think that's the song. I was like, hey, come on,
American trunks.
Yeah, like American. He wants to get his American fans up and let the Americans know that he's the real.
Heavyweight champ?
Like real one they should be paying attention to over Deontay Wilder. That's why he was apparently doing all that stuff.
It makes sense. But again, you got to fight better competition than that. But other than now Ruiz getting in the frame, it's either Ruiz, Wilder. Joshua's probably not going to be fighting anytime soon. But he was a big favorite for a reason. You saw the highlights. He was ducking and dodging all of those shots. We were talking about the combative sports a little bit earlier in the boxing. Again, I was watching some of the other bouts in there, and it was just... Even this, it was a one-sided finish, but I was like, oh, okay. Where in MMA, when it's a mismatch at times, you get Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica Ai, where you're like, oh, I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life. This, okay. I don't know. Just doesn't do it for me.
I won't remember it, and it's... I don't know. What's Deontay Wilder going to do next? Are they both just going to fight?
He's going to fight the loser of this fight.
Is everybody going to... No, because he's on a whole different thing. I feel like he's on a whole... Because he has his own belt, the Gypsy King. I don't know. It's not even... Until the three of them fight each other, everything else is just... Yep. You knew who was going to win.
Exactly.
So, is it this order? Let's see what way we're going to go. But yeah, you can talk about Bellator. Was it 222?
I believe it was. Was it on Dan's? Now you have all these subscriptions, DAZN, freaking based companies that are really making it. And this main event was actually pretty fun. It was pretty stacked. If you watched a lot of the prelims, there was people that they've been hyping for a long time. Heather Hardy earlier, getting a huge upset. Getting upset by, I feel like it was a debut professional fighter who was 50-50. She was a big underdog in the fight. She ended up coming through. And so did freaking... I can't remember this fighter's name. Briois. He was 13-0 coming in to Bellator and putting in a good scrap against Pico. Pico moving to Jackson Wink, everyone said he was revived. He's a new fighter. He's going to change his game.
So he left TJ's camp and went to Jackson Wink?
For this specific, and he was saying he's felt better than he's ever felt. Everybody at his camp saying, wow, it's a new Aaron Pico. They did it for Venom Page where they gave him shit tons of cans. As far as Bellator is concerned, they were giving him 4-3 fighters or like 2-0 fighters, where Pico's getting 16-3, 12-1 fighters, 13-0 fighters that are legitimate, where it's like, no. Pico is picking these harder fights because he wants to prove himself, and now that he's in a rut as far as his finishes, but I don't know if he can dig himself out of this hole eventually. What do you feel like Aaron Pico, he's coming off of 2 finishes in a row.
Do you think he's overhyped? I mean, obviously he's overhyped in a way. Like, he hasn't won anything.
Or is he glass-jawed? Because his skills are there. I mean, look at everything he does. He's fucking legitimate. But he can't take a punch. But that's just the name of the game. That's why if you have a cast iron chin, you can be a Jeremy Stevens, where you get beat up to the 3rd round and land that one punch you have that's a heavy overhand right. It's the name of the game.
Or is it really just, the timing of the knee to hit him in the jaw? Yeah, but I don't know if it's there. Is he really telegraphed? Is maybe he's a super hard guy in training.
But maybe he gives it away in the training room. Maybe he spars hard before and gets dinged up too much, and then by this point, he's already been bruised up. By this fight come around, he's already coming in, which everybody is, for sure, but something isn't working for Aaron Pico. Yeah, and he's young enough that he can take 2 years off. Legitimately. I'm just saying.
I think so. I think you're right.
He needs to take a year or more. I know he's young. He wants to keep going, but the CTE has got to be real by this point with this young man. His nose is one of those just... Woo! He's been in it. He's been boxing since he was a youth as well, wrestling for a long time, giving all that to be an MMA star, but...
He needs to be on that Sage Northcutt plan.
Sometimes the best thing you can do is rest, and he's the type of person that I feel like does not rest if his body's there. Like, he'll overtrain easily, where you're like, no, you got to understand that rest benefits you. And he's had so much traumatic injury as of late, he needs a long rest and be working on those neural pathways as much as possible. Being taken, whatever mushrooms you need to be taking, not Joe Rogan endorsed, natural mushrooms. Go to Colorado. He's in Colorado. No, he's in New Mexico now. So, but I know that he can get... there's things that can benefit him, and it's not fighting right now.
Because that knee would have knocked out anyone, but it just keeps happening.
But it's happening so many times. Exactly. Yeah, so. His last finish was a one-hitter quitter where his head bounced off of the canvas. Yeah. So, Pico, just take some time off, brother. You got a long career ahead of you, many years, as far as I'm concerned. I think so, too.
I think you're right.
Then we went, if you were listening, to Lat B. You're trying to make some money. I told you guys 3 underdogs that I was interested in. I didn't say necessarily parlay them. I said, maybe these guys. I've been praising Horiguchi, the Gooch himself, for a long time. He ended up coming through. He was the only one of the 3 that came through, but hey, that's plus money. You're welcome. Definitely plus 145 for the Gooch at 145 were they fighting at, but I mean, UFC contender who got out of it and has actually been fighting better than he ever has, now getting 2 wins over the bigger, heavier Darren Caldwell. Caldwell thinking the cage was going to end up being a big deal for him. I was completely against that, thinking like, hey, Horiguchi ended up going to Top Team and came out the week before the fight and saying like, I like the cage more as well. That's where I feel like I'm the best. And you could see his evolution of his cage work in the UFC get progressively better. So I feel like if Horiguchi came back into the UFC, he's easily a top 5 contender.
Have you heard the thing? This is a tiny bit off topic, and then we'll go back to Horiguchi later on.
Yes, go ahead.
Have you heard that Tony Ferguson doesn't train with a cage specifically for Khabib?
I did not hear that. Interesting.
Isn't that because the way Khabib pulls everybody away from the cage?
Right.
So Khabib doesn't train with a cage.
Hey, there's many ways to look at a fight.
Yeah, like forever. Like he hasn't trained with it.
Sure.
Yeah, I just thought that was really interesting. Maybe Eddie Bravo said it on Joe Rogan. That just seems like the most likely pathway.
Definitely.
Horiguchi, The fight looked good, and I also saw people online saying that they felt like Horiguchi could have beat Mighty Mouse.
Now that we've seen the path of beating Mighty Mouse, yeah. But I feel like I even said it, if you look back in those early episodes, saying Horiguchi will eventually contend against DJ, but they're feeding him too early. He got like 3 or 4 wins in a row. They're like, okay, here you go, DJ. And he got the latest finish ever against DJ, or DJ got the latest finish ever at 4 minutes, 59 seconds of the 5th round in that armbar. But Horiguchi at that point had done better than most anybody before that, with DJ getting a lot of finishes. So, yeah, we saw it here at Lappy. That's why you guys listen, because we see things. Everybody sees things together. If you see something else, let us know. Send us a tweet, a comment on that YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram at LapBMMA on that Instagram.
On all those feeds. And yeah, you can drop up. And this will be a little quick one. You can go to thelatherandcompany.com and put in the code LATV15. Get yourself a little something. Get someone you love a little something. Feel clean. Feel fresh. Get rid of all the weird biome, micro. Get rid of the guilt, people. No one's dying. No one's dying for your nasty old human armpit or your nuts.
No orangutans are harmed.
No one's dying for your nuts. Latherandcompany.com, LATV15. Get yourself some. Yeah, throw it all in. And yeah, you said the following thing. LATV_MMA, Insta. You can go to the Lesbo and the Bean Twitter. But I think everyone... You could go to Zol tonight. I do think you're better at putting out all the bets. If you're somebody that listens for that reason, you should definitely follow you at Zol tonight on Twitter as well.
Oh, well, thank you.
That was all my commercials.
Well done. If you want to
worry about some shitty TV show, maybe if you watch some Real Housewives, sometimes I might tweet about other stuff, a conspiracy. That shit I'm doing. I don't know. I try to do like 50% MMA stuff off my Twitter. So if you're looking for
MMA, I'm like 98%.
Yeah, you're doing so good over there. So that's why I wanted to heavily endorse.
In groin shots. You see some groin shots or people.
Yeah, you see other stuff. It seems more.
Yes, so. Definitely. But at Weak Neck Baby is where you can follow Cheney if you want to get in on that. So, fun weekend of Bellator. Ended up culminating with other fights happening. Dylan Dennis, the Wonder Boy himself, the self-proclaimed GOAT, Conor McGregor's #1 fanboy, Dylan, the Cheetah Pants Dennis, is beating more cans. He came out as the boxer, essentially, as I feel like Prince Nazim, the boxer who used to be all crazy funky. But either way, the most interesting about this bout was he's fighting another can. Why can't Aaron Pico fight this guy? Aaron Pico fights this guy. Guess what's happening?
What
Knockout.
weight are they at?
Doesn't even matter. Aaron Pico should fight him.
I feel like he seems like a 270 or a 170. I'm sorry. I have no idea though.
I want to say 45.
You know how we like to just free ball it on times we don't have fights.
100%, especially when it comes to Dylan Dennis. Nobody cares. He's fighting again.
So you're not impressed?
Not at all.
You're not impressed about his skills yet. Well, we'll just have to come back to it. That's all I was really interested in. I know he submitted the guy in the second round, I think by armbar.
But it was without an LCL, which he came out with saying the week before he completely tore it, couldn't stand, ended up able to stand a day or two before the fight, and then knew he had to get it finished on the ground. How do you feel about that?
That's how I thought he was going to finish it. Isn't that how he always finishes his fights?
Is he a submission, right? So, agreed. Not a bold prediction.
That's what he does.
But I want to say, just if I'm being the type of critical viewer here, when you see this bent over body without a straight back and his head ducked right there, Dylan Dennis in the graphic,
that's a takedown?
Garbage slow takedown that against anybody that's above a 0-2 fighter
is going to
probably
out.
Exactly, or he's not going to be able to get him to the ground, and all of a sudden without an LCL,
get Pico'd?
I feel like Dennis is smarter with his career, because he's not like give me the top contender right now. He's like no, give me that guy who's eating a sandwich in the stands. Yeah, that guy, I'll fight him, and he's a -2,000 and can beat guys without an LCL. He's not beating guys.
He has friends in high places telling him smart things to do.
And he's doing smart things where Aaron Pico's like, no, give me the toughest route and not getting paid for it. Well, getting paid better than most, but could be getting paid more. And now there's guys essentially making their names off of him. And we've seen it.
Maybe it doesn't do good to have all these big names talk about how good you are. Maybe that does nothing for you.
I would agree. It's been proven time and time again that even with John Jones, he walked the walk before anything ever happened. And Conor McGregor, that's what got him all of his fame. He did walk the walk. We've seen the holes in the exploited now parts of his game, but I bet against him every time because I always felt like I saw those holes, but now we really... I did. I was so against that son of a bitch so many times.
It's so funny.
I'm just saying, the hate's been real for a long time. So then we ended up getting
this isn't
the
in
main
order,
event.
but I figure we should talk about it first, only
Please.
because of Chael, and we'll go back to Chael later. So
McDonald beating Gracie. I did have Gracie as a potential underdog as well for the bets, but it was all because Rory McDonald came out saying that, you know, he found Jesus and didn't want to hurt people, but has now since found a flame in there. Actually, an interesting fight. Obviously, Rory McDonald is the better all-around MMA fighter, and we saw again the Gracies fall short as far as the grappling wrestling aspect, where when you can't take the fight to the ground and you're not a better striker, all of a sudden you're shit out of luck. So that's kind of the trap I felt like eventually ended up playing out, which kind of tends to do with Rory's game plans. It was just whether the finish would come or not, and it didn't. It went to decision. Rory didn't want to go to the ground with a good ground guy, makes sense, and I don't know if it necessarily does anything for me, except he moves up on the ladder for that $1 million grand prize in the tournament they're in right now. But I was not entertained.
you were not entertained. I didn't even watch it. Sorry, everyone. I didn't watch it at all. I did see a couple of highlights, and then from the highlights that I saw, I really thought that the Gracie won.
Interesting. I'm not surprised. I am not surprised.
Yeah, I didn't think by decision. I just think the pictures I thought Rory almost got submitted. That's how I thought. I thought it ended by submission, not by decision. So when I was actually picking out these things, I thought, Rory won this fight. Surprising. And like what you're saying, I thought he was totally Dunzo Manunzo. So here we go. Still on. I don't know why I'm a Rory hater. I don't need any email about it. So, anyways, yeah, this fight, I felt like, it was a shrug fight.
Yeah, totally agreed. The Horiguchi fight, definitely way better.
And so, this is...
the main event of...
It was the co-main, but it's the main event.
The people's main event.
It's the people's main.
The people's main event. The two former UFC stars in here. We had Lyoto Machida coming in and finishing Chael Sonnen. TKO, what was it, round number 2? Beginning of round number 2? Yeah. I believe it was
like
as well.
22 seconds at round number 2.
Sure. Chael, bad boy Sonnen, ended up coming in at Westland, Oregon, the mean streets of Westland, Oregon, which is the richest neighborhood in the area. Just saying, grew up near those mean streets. They rich. They had their own school buses.
Doesn't the way this takedown almost look the same as that takedown you were talking about with Dylan Dennis?
No. No, not at all. There's definitely a much straighter back here, but to me what it looks like is a Chael Sonnen hesitating before all of it just because he knew something was coming, because this knee landed earlier in the first round, and Chael ate it and was able to scramble. I believe maybe got a half of a takedown in there, but Chael, before he was shooting for this takedown in the second round again, it was just very slow, very telegraphed. He was supposedly having a hard weight cut as well. It was one of the hardest. On top of, he was saying that he had more media than he had ever done for anything on top of a fight the week before this because he was such a profile fight. And I heard him everywhere. And everyone's like, dude, aren't you cutting weight? And he cuts from like 220 down to, 185, wherever they're at. So it was just catching up to him. A lot of people saw it coming. Sonnen has a lot of good names under his belt, but it was finally time. He did it to himself. I'm glad for him because I hated seeing this knee, honestly. Lyoto still going to have a contender type of showcases in there, but Chael, no. He's been losing to everybody. It's been time for a long time.
Yeah, it's painful to watch, and his kids were ringside crying.
Of course. Luckily, he didn't go completely out, but I bet you his head's hurting today, and it's not the
ugly.
drinking.
So then the big news of the whole night, which it was emotional for people, and it was emotional. Chael was emotional about it. Is Chael retired afterward?
As far as MMA?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's done. He put his gloves in the middle of the octagon, of the middle of the cage. I'm sorry, Bellator. So, he did officially retire, but guess what? He's got a podcast that's going through the roof. He's got pizza company in Westland that's doing amazing. He used to be a
yeah, he's doing fine, and he works for ESPN now.
Yes.
He doesn't really need to. I think even contractually, there's probably a lot of things that he will be eligible to do with ESPN, with the UFC, now that he maybe isn't with Bellator anymore.
And I was about to say, don't think Bellator's not like, hey, you want to take Frank Mir's garbage spot? You want to take freaking Goldie, who's not been doing his best work lately? I mean, that was
good for business.
Way better commentator than either of those guys. I guarantee it. Guaranteed.
So people all tweeted out stuff to Chael, the thanks Chaels, and Chris Weidman tweeted, "Congratulations, Chael Sonnen, on retirement. Great career filled with huge fights and amazing entertainment." And Ian McCall, I obviously didn't pull them all, but I pulled a few. "Congratulations to Chael Sonnen. Uncle Creepy tweets on a great career, an unbelievable fighter, wrestler, and great entertainer. Hate it or love it, the dude is a trailblazer and a pioneer of the sport. All in the best of retirement." Brennan Schaub, your fave.
I love him.
Chael Sonnen, congrats. One of the most genuine human beings I have ever met in my life. One of the good guys. Not a bad guy. Years ago, he found out a certain UFC fighter with a large family got suspended. Chael sent an envelope with a check to his house to help. They barely knew each other.
Not a bad guy. Interesting. I'm not saying Chael Sonnen's a bad guy. I have shook his hand. He is a nice guy. I've seen him at wrestling tournaments before. But he was a Republican representative for Oregon.
So you are saying he is a bad guy?
No, I'm just saying that he was federally indicted for money laundering and like the whole housing scheme. He almost went to prison. Yeah, he had to step down from that position. I don't care what political face he stands for. They're all garbage as far as I'm concerned. But but I'm just saying, like, politically he couldn't keep going forward.
You can make money doing this.
Exactly. Like he was told, yeah, you can't. People that are people with charges like that don't get to run for politics. So he's not going to be able to do that, but he's doing absolutely fine. Absolutely fine.
He's going to be fine, yeah. Everyone's like, and Platinum Perry, I think pretty much sums it the best. Lima, Anik, everybody tweeted about it. Platinum Perry, congrats on the fighting career, American Gangster at Chael Sonnen.
He is a pioneer. He was doing it long ago.
Still talking trash about the game, though. Don't retire from that. Ariel Helwani needs the controversy. So I thought it was, that was definitely a perfect way to say it.
Thank you, Chael
Justin
Sonnen.
Gaethje, yeah. And then I liked Luke Thomas's off the Twitterverse about it, where he put, there's a fair amount of losses too, but this ain't a bad resume no matter how you want to frame it. So it just goes through a bunch of names. So I think if you're not following Luke Thomas, I was looking at him, and because I wasn't around Chael Sonnen life very much. So like Rampage, Wanderlei, Shogun, Bisping, Brian Stan, Nate Marquardt, Yushin Okami, Dan Miller,
Paulo Filho,
Amir
Zuliev, yep.
Yeah, Mayhem Miller, like a whole bunch. But I was like, whoa, he did beat some legit dudes.
Legitimate people in there. Part of some of the most controversial fights ever, with Paulo Filho also weighing 7 pounds overweight because he was having a mental breakdown. So Chael beat him but wasn't able to get the belt at WEC. Really interesting how that dynamic went through. But same with not putting the Pacific Northwest on the map, because that was Team Quest and Randy Couture. But Chael picked that up and did a lot of that work out there as well. He also almost beat Anderson Silva. One of the first people to really show Anderson Silva was mortal. When he beat him, EPO'd out of his head a whole 4 minutes and 59 seconds until that triangle in the 5th round. So, Chael Sonnen, thank you for the star-studded career. It was fun, but definitely. I don't feel bad for you. You're going to be absolutely fine.
I'm glad he's getting out.
Agreed.
I think it's good.
Agreed.
And he's smart. He's played his thing. His podcast is interesting enough. I catch it, like, tidbits of it as on YouTube here and there. I like his point of view. I like his voice. He does not need to fight anymore. On, out, up, hit.
I was about to ask you, does he get one of the official taglines here at Lab B?
Yeah,
and yes, he did.
Yeah.
Definitely did. Well deserved.
Thanks, Chael.
Thank you, Chael.
So back to the MMA Twitterverse, and I thought it was a good question to end on, being that there was no UFC in the weekend, and there was, however, there will be UFC next weekend.
Oh, yeah.
But we should have a Twitter question. Do you all see any Bellator champ beating the UFC champ in their division? What do you think on that?
I don't. I do not see any Bellator champ. The only one I would have thought of off the top potentially would have been like Darian Caldwell, who we just saw lose to Horiguchi, who's a Risen fighter, so not Bellator, and Lima, but I don't think, again, I think he's in the mix at the title, but I don't think he takes out the champ at 170 walking in, regardless of the champ, whether it's Colby or
Think
Usman.
Mousasi could beat Whitaker?
Nope.
I don't think at all that Rory could beat Usman.
Right.
I don't even think it's a question, but I'm kind of a Rory hater. I've said it before, and I'm kind of an Usman lover, so it's like, take it for what it is.
Do they say McFarlane at whatever? Is it 130 pounds or 25 pounds? Alina Leigh McFarlane.
Who is it? Who's the big redheaded guy? Nate Marquardt?
No. Ryan Bader at 205. No, he got stopped already by John Jones.
No. He's not at 205. He's heavyweight too. Do you think he could beat DC at heavyweight?
No.
Neither.
No. Neither. Not even close.
Not even close. And not Mousasi. I think Mousasi might be able to beat Whitaker. That would be a good fight.
It's a close fight. It's a tight fight. It is a close fight, but I would put my money in.
That's my only one that I think is close, though. Out of
all the divisions, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's so. Not close at all. So I don't think that Bellator has any chance right now currently. The only guys that have come over and done that has been Eddie Alvarez. That's it, as far as I can think. From Bellator, specifically.
Shite. That can't be. Yeah, and then other people, even people that were making a run at it, like Michael Venom Page, or like now look at
that's what I'm saying. Lima is the guy who just... But we've been saying that good Lima, but again, he's a contender at 70. He's not the champ. He doesn't walk into the UFC and is a champ.
Yeah, so, that's fun. Fun. And then that...
The cringiness moves on.
We talked about that. Woo. There was one more thing. Where is it? Oh, look it. We didn't talk about that yet. If you want to, since we're back on the Twitterverse talk, do you think, or DC said that Stipe Miocic is probably going to be his last fight?
We've also seen DC say, I'm retired.
We kind of could have segued in if I would have done it after Ryan Bader.
And we could have filled it right in with DC.
Yeah.
So DC beats Ryan Bader and then moves off into the sunset when it's a cross-promotional fight between Bellator and UFC. Yeah. We've been wanting it for a long time.
Conor McGregor's career in a boxing contest.
Exactly. And they do it in a ring at that.
Yeah.
So I don't believe it whatsoever that this is going to be potentially the last fight for DC, only because he retired prior to this fight. He said at 40 years old, I'm done.
He wants to, which to me is a very dangerous mindset.
For us, we totally are always like red flag, talking about retirement.
He
red
says
flag
that all the time. He's been talking about that.
So I think Stipe has a real shot in there again. Stipe was holding his own in that fight, so it's definitely a tough bout. But DC is definitely hanging on by a thread. So I don't think he goes on for 5 more fights by any means whatsoever. But if they offer DC the right fight with the right money on the right card, he will find a way to put the donuts down and get in there at heavyweight. Because it ain't going to be no 205. I guarantee you that. I'll guarantee you he's never fighting at 205 again.
The damn shame about DC is he actually has the body style that he could not only be the heavyweight champ, He could at 205 potentially be the champ. Maybe John Jones. He's gotten
Without
in trouble
John Jones.
enough when John Jones isn't in there. He could have had that belt. That he could have lost enough weight, I think, to get the belt at 185.
I don't think so. I feel
You just
like
don't think, no way.
I don't think he's that body type.
Yep. To 205.
I think that
He's got that Fred Flintstone body.
He's done it more than anybody else. Yeah, exactly. Like his body's just he's got a body type on him, and how can you be an Olympic wrestler in there and end up with that? And I've seen big guys in wrestling. They're hard as a rock. I bet you he feels like a cord of wood.
Yeah, that's what I always think. That was one of the first things you told. Dan Henderson was one of the first fighters that I saw fight. I don't know what card, when, anything. And his body just wasn't that impressive. And I remember saying something about it, and you were like, that guy's one of the hardest guys in there. That's what everyone says about him.
Yeah, everybody, every masseuse is just like, it hurts hands. And he'll tell them. He'll say like, yeah, people, I have to pay him double because he just feels raw, like a salt, and it's that bone density, muscle density. Some of it can be built. There is just natural. But Dan Henderson, growing up on a farm, funny how a lot of these guys that are really solid are wrestlers who also did like their off time was baling hay, and it was just like they were just body hardening all day long, 365. And then other men in there are like, oh, I picked up martial arts and hair.
I always picture body hardening. I always picture, now it's Tony Ferguson, but it used to always be the image of the guy on that movie with Show Nuff where he's sitting in his room with the wooden doll. And he's doing the arm.
Leroy, the last dragon.
Yeah, he's fighting that like dummy with the like wooden arms.
Which Tony does as well.
That's what, now it's Tony Ferguson who fights like that. And so
what I always think of is Bloodsport, where Van Damme is tied up to a pole, and then the Japanese dad who lost his son is tying the wrenches, and he's doing the splits, and he's like, ah, 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 and then he breaks it, and he's like, he's got it. That's what I think of body hardening. You gotta do the splits.
Wow, that's so much. That guy has a way harder body than my guy. Yeah.
This guy's getting his groin ripped apart.
That is way harder body. So yes, we do have fights coming up this week from South Carolina, so they should be at a relatively normal ESPN time.
American standards as far as that. Yeah. Well, and I think UK is pretty regular as far as watching them, 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. So
that's the time they're used to.
Yeah, it's regular time for them. Sorry, guys. Sorry.
Yeah, it's so selfish.
It is. But
selfish Americans.
I feel the pain at times when I have to wake up twice out of the year to watch fight cards at 6 a.m. But
we get excited about it.
Like, agreed. It breaks up the monotony at times. Sometimes it's like, oh, we can go out this afternoon. So, one we're not going to be able to go out for is going to be for Moicano versus Korean Zombie making his comeback since that elbow we were talking about earlier with Yair. That was one of the most brutal finishes we've seen this to date. And there's been a lot of contenders in there, but man, gorgeous back elbow.
Didn't we just see Moicano get slaughtered in a meat slaughter by somebody?
Aldo?
Who just chewed through him? Aldo chewed through him.
Yeah. But that was also probably, I want to say like 5-6 months ago now. It's going to be, I want to say almost a year for Zombie.
The last time we saw Korean Zombie was get KO'd with the nasty elbow.
But he was winning a 5-round fight every second of that 5-round fight. Korean Zombie was winning. Yair was picking his pot shots. I had Yair. I won my bet.
I don't know if he was winning every second.
Well,
but he looked good in there.
He was winning 4 out of the 5 rounds to me, if not all 5. And then he walked into that elbow, but who doesn't? I mean, woo, that was unbelievable.
That was nasty.
So, Korean Zombie comes in with a well-rounded game plan. Moicano, being an up-and-comer, but being a good Samaritan out here in Florida. Have you seen any tape on the Twitterverse there lately of him picking up a snapping turtle and taking it across the street and dropping it off?
Yes.
And the neck of the turtle almost gets his hand, and his little Muay Thai ass reacts, and he's fine. But I'm like, dude, those can almost reach back to their legs. You don't know, homie?
What, who do you have in this? I know we're going to break it down right now. And I know it could change, so everybody has to like and subscribe and make sure they hit that bell or whatever it is people tell you to do. And my new favorite thing, have you noticed everyone on YouTube says people are getting unsubscribed every day? So make sure you're liking and subscribing because, Google is against
those
everyone.
Updates will knock you off, so make sure.
Yeah, so who do you have right now? And I don't have anything else to say. I'll tell you who I have. You say who you have. And yeah.
All right. I am going to end up going with Korean Zombie decision. I think he takes it in 5 rounds. And Moicano, the more we've seen him go in rounds, he can get overwhelmed a little bit in there. Maybe he's tightened it up after that last loss, but kind of leaning Zombie. I could change. I need to keep watching tape.
Perfect. Right now I'm leaning Moicano. And so that's perfect. Thanks for listening, XOXO. And we are not making dog soup in the other room.
Let me!